The Sister Wives world stopped acting on this day. Viewers thought they had seen it all for years. The affection, the arguments, and the deceit. Scandal, one marriage after another failing. However, what you're going to hear was not intended for television. All family illusions are shattered in this judicial battle. Cohesion with Meri Brown, the wife who used to quietly hover on the edge of polygamy, but now has mountains of papers and a tongue that can cut through the loudest gavel blow. This is no longer reality television. This includes signed contracts, financial transactions, real estate titles, and unfulfilled promises. As soon as Meri looks at the man who had told him that was a lie and built an empire out of her devotion, Kody Brown was stunned into silence by something that happened in that courthouse, and it had an impact on every part of the Sister Wives universe. Because a secret about Kody Pass, that 12-acre promise of a shared future, was eventually revealed behind those judicial doors. And don't assume you know who actually owns that land. The opening remark that stopped the judge cold will be played over the course of the following 10 minutes. Discover the contract that was supposed to ensure that every wife received a piece of Kody Pass, but somehow left Meri with nothing, and view the paperwork that Kody tried to keep sealed. We'll trace the events from the official divorce in 2014 to Robyn's adoption of Kody's children, and the day Meri realized her name was missing from the paperwork. We'll also explain why this case is about more than just Arizona soil before it's finished. It involves roughly 30 years of unpaid labor, deception on reality shows, and a man rewriting family history, past to suit his needs. That day, the sound in the courtroom was unusual. There was no silence. It had a charge. Every cough and paper rustle sounded like a gun cocking. Meri Brown got to her feet. The sound of her shoes clicking on the shiny floor was louder than it should have been. Everyone in that room was holding their breath, not because it was noisy. Think about it. When bigger personalities took over the spotlight, reality TV was positioned as a subdued, always behind-the-scenes show. Now it marches with purpose, in the direction of the stand. She was staring at a man she had once trusted. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a no-nonsense bun, and she had always been assertive and purposeful, wearing a dark blue blazer. Evidence in the form of a big folder, not just papers or a prop. As she passed Robyn, who was seated next to Kody, her gaze remained fixed. When she looked directly into the eyes of the guy who had vowed to give her spiritual parity, they did not falter. When she reached the microphone, she lowered it slightly, and then there was silence. She said, "Your Honor, first, her." The tone was solid but faltered at the edges. Not out of fear, but rather from 3 decades of pent-up rage and anguish that were trying to find a way out. I'm here today to take back what was rightfully mine, not only as a wife, but also as a mother, a woman, and a person. I want what is rightfully mine, and I'm not leaving. The gallery erupted in gasps, and the game abruptly shifted. Meri wasn't trying to make amends here. Meri was pointing out Kody's charm in one location. Control were worthless in a legal setting. Meri's comments lingered in the atmosphere like unclean smoke. The judge nodded slowly. She was a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair tied back into a bun. Even though she was calm, her eyes swept Meri with the kind of curiosity that told everyone in the room that this was not going to be dismissed. For this moment, Meri had waited for 30 years. She twisted herself into the shape Kody wanted after 30 years of devotion. Finally, she had the floor now. What she didn't, had time, because she was going to be cut off at the knees by the defense. Meri took the first document out of her file. She had probably been sleeping with it in her handy clutch for months because it was tattered at the edges. This, she held up aloft for the judge to look at, is a payment statement dated August 14th, 2018. My business account has been deposited into the family trust. This trust was created. She was hesitant to pay for the Kody Pass property. Nevertheless, the deed never bore my name. There was a mutter of surprise in the gallery. Meri took out another sheet. A real estate agent sent me this email to express interest in investing. Her fingers clenched as though handling it would cause pain, and she pulled one last sheet out of the folder. A copy of the show contract that we all signed is also attached. Simply put, It states that the money made from the filming would go towards building homes on Coyote Pass and our family's future together. The magistrate took a seat. Kody's knuckles were white from the tightness of his crossed arms. Robyn examined the ground. Kody was afraid at this point. Each page of that folder served as a reminder that his own words and vows had been recorded on paper and were now evidence. Not so much because Meri had proof. Meri's voice broke. When Kody and I separated in 2014 to allow him to officially wed Robyn and adopt her children, I did so with the intention that spiritual quality would remain and that our contracts, emotional, financial, and ethical, would be upheld. That was dishonest. Kody tightened his jaw. Robyn. She shifted again, her hands fluttering in her lap. I spent 30 years with this family. I brought up a child. I contributed to the creation of the very show that gave rise to this land. I've now been subtly and purposefully taught that I don't deserve to be squared in. Meri gripped the stand tightly. I renounce my legal union. I sacrifice my voice, but I will not give up any longer. Janelle leaned forward behind her, staring at Meri with an unspoken me too. The dream of Coyote Pass. To understand the seriousness of this situation, you must return to 2018, when Coyote Pass was only a pipe dream, Kody's fantasy. For custom residences on 12 acres in Flagstaff, Arizona, he painted it in his wife's head. Equal future, equal shares, and equal voice. It sounded fair. Kody smiling up close for the TLC cameras. Arms extended. They talked about creating something for the family's history. But the cameras missed it. Funding, transfers, and legal records. Because the action spoke while Kody was talking about equality. Otherwise, Meri answered the judge's question in court once more. Your Honor, indeed, the spouses were always supposed to split the property 4 ways. That was the deal. Written, verbal, emotional, and monetary. When did you discover that your name was missing from the deed, Judge? Meri, not until Janelle and I began exchanging papers at the end of 2023. Then Meri, what'd you do, Judge? I spoke with Kody. He informed me he needed more because he put in more effort. However, it wasn't based on who made more money. Since we were a family, our system was predicated on equally dividing the land. The clerk was given an evidence folder by the bailiff. Kody's attorney, a towering man with a perfectly ironed Navy suit and a face that seemed to have been cut out of marble, rose to his feet. Your Honor, I object. This proof is excessively sentimental and unrelated to who actually owns the land. Mrs. Brown's involvement was spiritual rather than material. Meri laughed softly, almost without sound. Her attorney, an astute woman, just behind her, standing up in a tan suit. Please pardon me. Mr. Brown intentionally created a Bluter-style financial system for the Brown family. All funds received from TLC, independent companies, or joint ventures were deposited into accounts that were owned collectively. Mrs. Brown was more than just a devout spouse. The money for Coyote Pass came from her unpaid co-ownership of a multi-dead company. The judge's brow went up. Kody's attorney sat with a clenched jaw. The 2014 divorce, Meri, did something that not many people in the sister wife community had predicted. She divorced Kody to allow Kody to officially marry Robyn and adopt her children, not because she was leaving. The sacrifice was presented as family, love, and loyalty. However, Kody hung on to what was really leverage. Once the adoption is complete, we catch a sight of Kody smiling. By his side, Meri smiles politely. She gave up the kind of rights that may have protected her, along with her legal standing in the marriage. Once more in the courtroom, Marries. The lawyer made a move to add the documents to the evidence. A foot tapped under the table, but Kody remained still. Robyn looked down at the ground. The dynamics had shifted in that room. Meri was more than just a whiny wife. Every page of the plaintiff's bank statements revealed a new thread from the portrait. Kody had spent decades painting. Janelle stands up. The judge gave the gallery a nod. Please take the stand, Mrs. Janelle Brown. Slowly rising to her feet, Janelle's shoulders bore the marks of years. Not only the years of marriage, only to be abandoned, overruled, and now deceived. Janelle co-designed the Coyote Pass dream in addition to being a witness. She put her trust in the business, her personal money, and her business income into it. But the reality had set in as she got closer to stand. On paper, her investment had been lost, just as Meri's. With a steady tone tinged with silent steel, Janelle adjusted the microphone. "I'm here today, Your Honor, not for me, but for justice and openness. Coyote Pass was first. Purchase. Kody personally promised me that each of the 4 spouses will receive an equal portion of futures, parcels, and wives. That was the deal." The magistrate bent forward. "You also made a monetary contribution to this property?" "Indeed, out of TLC revenues and out of my business account. I sincerely thought I was protecting my family's future when I made each and every deposit. However, Meri and I discovered that we were absent, not forgotten, and excluded when our data matched." Janelle's tone had hardened. I spoke. To Kody, Janelle's breaking point, Coyote Pass, wasn't dirt to her. He told me, and I'm paraphrasing, "I've done more for this family than either of you, so I get more." That wasn't the bargain we made. That wasn't the family we vowed to each other. Even after the love had faded, it was the only thing that kept her in the multiple marriage. She had endured years of financial difficulty, juggling her own job with TLC filming, believing that every dollar was helping to realize that goal. However, then, when the paper showed up, she realized she couldn't keep the dream. It belonged to Robyn's and Kody. Once again, Kody's attorney stood up in court. "Could you prove that your investment was designated for Coyote Pass, Mrs. Brown?" Janelle remained unflinching. "Yes, I do have signed contracts from the family trust and bank papers that show the acquisition of land." The lawyer inquired. "Those have been filed with the court." "It's in Mr. Brown's name, though." Correct, since he made sure it was. They whispered in the gallery. Kody's face became quite crimson. Kody stands up. The next witness was questioned by the court. "Come on up, Mr. Kody Brown." Kody moved slowly forward, his usual assurance giving way to a rigidity that appeared to have been trained. After adjusting his tie, something that fans had rarely witnessed him do, he took a seat. His oath was administered by the bailiff. Fans had been waiting for this moment. Kody's story has been unquestioned for years in scripted TLC programs, confessionals, and podcasts. But the spin wouldn't hold here, in front of a court. Meri's attorney came over. "Mr. Brown, is it accurate to say that each of the 4 spouses contributed money to the purchase of Coyote Pass?" Kody leaned back in his seat. The family benefited from their efforts. "The majority of the real labor to buy the property was done by me." "Mr. Brown, please respond directly to the question. Were all 4 wives financially involved? Is it true or false?" A pause. "Indeed. Was it agreed that the spouses would share the land equally?" "Although we discussed it, no formal agreement was made." The lawyer walked slowly. "However, a verbal agreement was made, correct?" "Maybe, but things change." Things take a drastic turn after that statement. For Meri and Janelle, Kody's paperwork and loyalty were the only things that had changed. The lawyer questioned again. "Did you realize, Mr. Brown, that the deed never included Meri and Janelle's names?" "Indeed. And you felt no need to inform them?" "It wasn't required." The attorney hesitated, letting the silence cling. 2 women who invested their own money did not need to be told that. The property they were promised was no longer legally theirs. Kody stirred uneasily. "When we were still a family, they loved the land." The judge's forehead wrinkled. "Mr. Brown, whether they profited or not is irrelevant to the court. Ownership is what we are interested in." Kody clenched his jaw and glanced at Robyn, who was sitting in utter quiet with her hands clasped securely in her lap. The cameras were there to witness the Brown family's disintegration over the years leading up to today. Christine's departure, Meri's solitude, Janelle's peaceful refuge. Additionally, Kody had always claimed that his wives had deserted him. The paper trail, however, disclosed another story today on oath, that he had deserted them long before they departed. Interrogation. Meri's lawyer leaned closer. "Did you use the money from TLC, which comes from all 4 wives, to pay for Coyote Pass, Mr. Brown?" "Thank you, but yes." No more inquiries. The defense lawyer interrupted to reroute. It's true, Mr. Brown, that you handle the majority of the organizing, negotiating, and Kody Pass's vision? Yes, I came up with the idea and did the labor, and the property wouldn't exist without you. Correct. The attorney spoke to the judge. He should therefore be allowed to retain majority control. And there it was. This was the crux of the defense's entire argument. Decades of group labor were not as significant as that vision, that it should be fully owned by the man who conceived it. However, deeds are more enforceable than dreams in court. The judge scowled at Meri's attorney during the rebuttal. Do you want to do more cross-examination? With an inexplicable smile that suggested she had something in her back pocket, her tan lawyer carefully rose to her feet. The majority of lawyers would rest their case at this stage. Marries, though, she wasn't supposed to go through this ordeal. Her goal was to win. Like a metronome, the lawyer's heels clicked out as she strode to the center of the room. Finally, Your Honor, I would like to mention something that Mr. Brown just said. Kody Pass's vision makes him a reality. There wouldn't be any property if it weren't for him. We reject that argument. She turned to face the gallery. In fact, we have a witness who can provide personal testimony regarding the funding source and the origin of the purchase. The bailiff opened the side door, surprising the onlooker. A tall, well-dressed man in a gray suit came in with a heavy leather folder. Daniel Harris, the family's former real estate broker, was introduced. Kody's face turned pale. This man had been for years. Nothing more than a closing document signature. He was about to testify under oath, though, and his words had the power to discredit Kody's version of events. After being sworn in, Harris took a seat. Meri's attorney took action. Could you tell the court, Mr. Harris, how you felt about the acquisition of Kody Pass? Indeed, in 2018, the sale was arranged by me as the broker. I worked with all 4 wives regarding their interest in the property and negotiated with the family trust. Every one of the 4 wives? Indeed, each was presented as an co-owner on an equal basis. The gallery was a hive of activity during early negotiations. Immediately, Kody's lawyer leaped to his feet. The witness held out his folder and said, Your Honor, unless there is paperwork, an early draft of the deed designating all 4 women as owners is there, along with documents, emails, and signed meeting minutes. If what Harris claimed was true, then Meri and Janelle's names were struck between the original draft and the final filing, and someone had to approve it, which is why that file was a bomb. Meri's attorney continued. In your experience, Mr. Harris, is it common to alter a deed from draft to filing? Not until instructed by the client. Mr. Brown was that client in this case. Kody shifted about. That isn't true. The judge's tone was stern as she intervened. You will be heard, Mr. Brown. The smoking gun. Harris pulled out a printed email from his folder. This letter, which was sent to me in September 2018, instructs me to finish the deed using just his name as the owner and to omit any unnecessary confusion by taking Janelle and Meri out. The room was filled with gasps. Meri and Janelle exchanged a look of validation rather than surprise. It was at this moment when the whole room felt it. There was no longer any vision or effort behind Kody's defense. The paper trail was catching up with him, and it was a control issue. Damage control by Kody. The lawyer for Kody took the stand to be cross-examined. Could you have misunderstood Mr. Brown's intentions, Mr. Harris? No, I followed the clear instructions. Could it have been a temporary fix? Not with a deed on file. Unless there is a lawful modification. It is final once it is filed. The defense lawyer's jaw tightened as he felt the momentum change. No more inquiries. Courtroom closing moments. With her pen tapping against a legal pad, the judge leaned back in her chair. I will need more time to think things through before rendering a decision because of the intricacy of the testimony and the newly presented evidence. Meri's attorney started to say. The judge held up a hand, though, in 2 weeks, this court will meet again. During this time, all documents pertaining to the Kody Pass property must remain undamaged and sealed to prevent tampering. Tampering in any way will be considered contempt. The room suddenly lost its air. No decision. Not just yet. However, the truth had surfaced. The only man who could take action against Kody had put it in writing after he was caught fabricating the dream he had sold to his wives. The fallout outside, as the reporters crowded the steps as the courthouse cleared. They shoved microphones forward. With her folder pressed firmly against her breast, Meri paused. "I came here to do no harm to anyone, to reclaim what I had worked so hard for. I came here." Janelle took a position next to her. "We're not going to give up. Not right now. Never." Kody fled through a side door. Robyn is right behind him. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them smiled. The Coyote Pass war was far from over. However, the gavel would descend in 2 weeks, and either Meri or Janelle would be reclaiming their portion of the land, or Kody would be stealing everything. The Sister Wives universe will never view him the same way again. That much is certain. Cut to split screen at the beginning of the media analysis segment. One half shows a panel of commentators on a brightly lit studio set, while the other half shows shaky courtroom drawings. The rest of the world was engulfed in its own tempest as the courtroom battle went on. The amount of social media feeds was overwhelming. Hashtags on Twitter, like hashtag, for hours. The hashtags hashtag #JusticeForginal and hashtag #CoyaToConspiracy were popular. We've watched this family for over a decade. We've seen fights, tears, even divorces. A longtime Sister Wives fan said, staring into her phone's camera in one viral clip. The network's own fan forums erupted with frame-by-frame analyses of courtroom footage, with Kody's raised eyebrows and Janelle's deep sighs turning into points of contention. Cut to a legal expert, a somber-looking legal commentator. From a strictly legal perspective, this case is interesting because it's not about money. Rather, it's about trust, long-term verbal commitments, and the optics of reality TV life spilling into a court of law. The most dramatic moment for me was when Janelle's lawyer introduced the unfiled land contracts that could potentially sink any argument Kody could make for ownership and show if Robyn did gain. Elaine Simmons, a retired prosecutor, sits in front of a set of law books. Ella Simmons, Legal A. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters by noon, according to the B-roll. News vans from all the major outlets, including TMZ, Entertainment Tonight, and People magazine, had parked outside the courthouse, and cameras were waiting for any sign of a settlement or a public breakdown. One amateur TikTok user spliced together clips from previous episodes of Sister Wives and captioned them with today's courtroom bombshells, saying, "The receipts were there all along. They simply weren't visible to us." Marcus Delgado, civil litigation expert. If the unexpected witness testimony is accepted, it could have a cascading effect on future reality TV contract drafting as well as property rights. Networks may start defending themselves against lawsuits like this one that are brought by families. However, as the nation argued over land deeds and treachery, there were rumors of a final piece of evidence, something in a brown envelope, that could put an end to the trial in a single blow. Afternoon session in the courtroom. The gallery hums like a whisper. The hum doesn't entirely stop even after the judge bangs the gavel twice. Janelle sat rigidly, staring at a single item on the evidence table. A thick, old brown envelope with the word confidential written in red letters. Hours passed while the envelope remained unopened and untouched, a constant threat. It was something that both sides had avoided all morning, but now there was no escaping it. Counsel, judge, step forward. The solicitors proceed. A conversation in whispers. Kody looking at Robyn with clenched lips and knuckles pressed to the table's edge. As if staring at the envelope for too long would chastise her, Robyn's eyes dart over it and then away. The verdict is then handed down. The court must watch as the envelope is opened. Intercut TV's morning segment features commentary. At that moment, the judge demanded that the seal be broken. It dawned on me then that this was no longer a family soap opera. This was going to make everything better. Returning to, the bailiff breaks the seal in the courtroom. Documents flow out, scribbled notes, photocopies, and signatures that appear ministerial. It was not ink on paper that had spilled across the table. Time itself was involved, with the past enshrined in legalese. Your Honor, prosecutor, Exhibit 49, a signed agreement from 2015. The payment of funds from a family trust is evidently reflected in it. immediately into a solely Robyn Brown-owned account. Throughout the courtroom, there were gasps. Janelle's attorney flips to a new page. Prosecutor. And these correspondences between Mr. Brown and the former developers of Kody, guaranteeing the wives that each of the four would continue to hold an equal stake in the property. Kody's expression is captured by the sketch artist's camera as soon as his jaw hardens into stone. Intercut with commentary. The legal analyst is Elaine Simmons. The smoking gun is that. The date, the signature, and the transfer history. It connects everything. For days, the prosecution has been making references. And the fact that the only name on the list is Robyn's, that will remain in the jurors' memories. However, the records included more than just real estate deals. A private letter, creased twice, lay between them. A letter that Kody wrote. The gallery bursts into whispers as the prosecutor reads. Prosecutor reading. If the others ever catch on to what we settled on, it's over. This country was always intended to be ours. Robyn. The rest will catch up in time. Christine covers her mouth with her hand while seated in the rear row. Meri gives her a shake. Head, eyes shut. The internet was already on fire outside those courtroom doors, and years of suspicion solidified into evidence in one envelope. Courtroom at 4:17 p.m. late afternoon. On the other wall is a clock. Now the air is thicker, as though even oxygen is holding its breath, waiting to hear what the judge has to say. All of this culminates in these final moments after 3 weeks of testimony, dozens of exhibits, and hours of cross-examination that destroyed reputations. The jurors' faces as they enter. Impossible to understand. Not all of them will look us in the eye. The verdict form is held in one's hand like a hot wire. Judge, have you all come to a unanimous decision? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we have your honor for people. News anchor, live broadcast anchor, commentary intercut. Right now, we're watching live as a verdict in the Janelle Brown versus Kody Brown case is finally read. The sealed evidence was previously made public for viewers who are just joining us. It was a blast this afternoon. Legal professionals are already praising it as one of the most significant turning points in reality TV history. When they return to the courtroom, Janelle sits erect and her attorney's hand rests lightly on her forearm. Kody's jaw is clenched, his shoulders are stiff, and his eyes are fixed straight ahead. With her lips pursed into a thin line, Robyn leans forward over the seat. The storyteller. In the silence, every blink is an explosion. The paper is unfolded after each breath is piled. There are 4 parties involved in financial misconduct. The jury determines the defendant. They cannot get the word out of their throat. A profound silence. The buzz of the fluorescent lights was actually audible, intercut with commentary. Panelist 1 is a legal analyst. The time for truth is now. Kody may face criminal charges in the future if he is found accountable. Panelists as well. Additionally, the public's reaction may be more severe if he is found not guilty. Let's return to the courtroom. Narration in slow motion. The 4 persons' lips move. The audio seems to be lagging. From the lawyers to the bailiff to the back pew to the gallery, every single eye in the room is focused on that one word that will decide the fate of a family, a fortune, and a legacy created on television. The camera makes a blinking sound. The magistrate tilts forward. Janelle clenches her fist. 4 people are at fault. The room erupts. Suppressed sobs, gasps, and a hurried foot traffic as reporters rush to the doors to deliver breaking news. Kody mutters something sour to his lawyer as he bangs his hand on the table. Janelle exhales, not with joy but with a kind of worn-out relief. TikTok fan reaction montage with commentary intercut. I was aware of it. It's finally catching up after he played them all. It's not about money. Rather, it's about trust betrayal and the end of an era. However, when the gavel falls one last time, there is still a question that remains. What happens next? This family's drama is far from over. This tweet trending #JusticeForJanelle2 forum posts in less than an hour podcast hosts this judgment. Keep shady, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next scandal kiss mark behind TLC Sister Wives. If you're a #TeamWife, subscribe for the next explosive update, and leave a comment below with who you think will win.